All right, we are live. Welcome to the Data and API show. It is so good to have all of you here today. I am joined today by a special guest, Chris Smith from Retool. How you doing?
Hello.
So,
Jesse, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's good to see you too. We've overlapped and interacted a little bit. I've done some work out there with Retool in the past, and we've overlapped there in the Retool Power users community.
Exactly.
Which is a great place.
A lot of power in that Slack chat.
This is true. It's true. But yeah, it's a good place. It's a good place to meet people who work with Retool. It's a good place to meet, see what's kind of happening. There was actually a recent feature somebody had mentioned that we can try and explore today. Actually, something about the dependency graph, shortcut to view your query dependencies. We're going to get into all of that down the road here, but yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. We'll have to check it out. Some of the latest we ship so much stuff. It's actually hard to keep up with. So it'd be cool to look at. I mean, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
I wrote an article, a couple articles featuring Retool, and even I've written one even on the Hazura blog featuring Retool, and by the time that I'd finished the article, I think 2 or 3 things were actually obsolete. They were like workarounds that I had posted, and they were not needed.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm constantly getting requests to go back and update old videos or things, or getting comments on YouTube videos about how the event handler system is different now, or this button's moved, and it's because it's a really testament to the team. It's a lot of
and you're dev rel as well, so you understand this. One of my first mistakes or desires as a dev rel was to attempt to when at a previous company was attempt to try to programmatically generate screenshots.
Yeah,
I know it's going to happen, and I don't want to come back here every 3 months to change the screenshots. But
would you use Selenium or something, like some sort of browser automation, or what'd you do?
What was I using? I was using I think Puppeteer was kind of the name of the game back then. But yeah,
that's cool. I mean, that's a good idea, but oftentimes that stuff ends up being more work than just going in and just doing it.
It was.
Yeah.
But that's good stuff. We're not talking about automated screenshots today. We are talking about working with Hazura plus Retool, and specifically one of Retool's really cool features from the Hazura perspective is you've got great GraphQL support.
Yeah.
So why don't you give the people a quick introduction about who you are, what it is that you do, and then we'll have a look at the platform and get to building.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Chris Smith. I'm a developer advocate at Retool. In that role, I basically help people broadly figure out how to use the tool, figure out how to reach out to developers, how to create interesting content that will speak to developers and show them how easy the tool is to use for building admin panels, building CRUD interfaces, quickly prototyping whatever app you want to build. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of my time looking at kind of content opportunities at where can I create something that will be interesting to people to put out into the world, or where can I network in with other developers and say, hey, what's a cool thing that you've built, and let's talk about that, let's share about it, let's promote it on our community page. And then it's a lot of supporting people internally as a technical person, helping to make sure our content is aligned with developers. So that's the core of what I'm doing. I also make YouTube videos on our channel, as well as speak on podcasts and vlogs, and go to some events. So that's the basics of it.
Very nice. All right, let's have a quick look. Go ahead.
Give a little bit of additional context as well. So I got to Retool because I was, and it's actually tied in with GraphQL. I was formerly working at a backend automation tool company called Tray.io, and there we needed to build a quick UI panel for managing different use cases of our customers. And so I started to look at the requirements for that to try and solve this internal problem, and needed a way to quickly spin up a fairly dynamic front end that was going to be pulling data from a couple different sources. And yeah, and I started looking at using React for it and Vue, and then someone suggested Retool, and I was able to build out a prototype of this internal tool for us in about a week. And then shortly after that, about 20 or 30 people were using it. And so I just basically just stubbed out a GraphQL API with AWS Amplify, and had it up and running super fast. And so GraphQL was actually my entry point into Retool as well.
That is great. Yeah. And so that means that you are definitely the right person to be on this call today. So
I hope so.
Because I had pinged you and I'd said why don't I said like the only thing maybe to prep for is just to make sure you're kind of up to date on the GraphQL integrations. But sounds like I've
used a lot of the features. I haven't used all of the GraphQL features, but I'm fairly familiar with it. So hopefully we can look at some interesting stuff. I'm sure we can. And
I think we'll get pretty far.
Maybe it won't be everything that we could possibly do, but a good amount.
Well, we don't have all the time, so we'll blame it on time constraints.
Yeah, perfect.
So for those that aren't aware, this is the Retool website, and I think you guys have a great little demo there, or kind of interface that demonstrates sort of the gist of how the interface works and what you can create with it. You want to kind of talk through what it is that we're looking at there?
Yeah, sure. So Retool is a really quick way of building internal tools. And so we have, if you're familiar with React, we have a lot of the same functionality as React, but much quicker to implement. So instead of having to pull in some sort of UI component library, we have pre-built UI components that you see on the right there. You can just drag and drop these onto your user interface. You can configure settings. On the bottom, we have a query panel, we have basically a whole bunch of pre-built integrations into different databases and API services. So instead of having to write out a bunch of boilerplate code, you can just automatically link into Firebase, for instance, or select a GraphQL endpoint and just drop in your endpoint, and we'll look at the schema, and you can just plug in your GraphQL queries. And then all of this goes into a common namespace, so you can basically write JavaScript anywhere you need it to customize the interface. And so we basically think about ourselves as React for internal tools, and really aim to make the internal tool building process about 10 times faster by having better abstractions and saving you time in all these ways that, if it was a production level external facing product, you might have to take a whole lot of time to really perfect and finesse the design and all these things. But for internal tools, they often have lower requirements in terms of look and feel. And so we really make it easy to build those out. And at some point, we might make it really easy to make them look really beautiful. And so it might be the best of both worlds. But for now, we really make it easy to build internal tools. So, it's an interface for building kind of process automation interfaces across support, success, sales, marketing, DevOps, financial ops, security ops, all sorts of internal operational processes.
And I think that's also an interesting area where there's a good intersection, because I'm looking down here, with the queries, and you've got things like, direct Postgres connections and Google Sheets and some other features there. A lot of those sources, you're able to have the admin person, your ops person, come in and create the connection and sort of potentially put some security guide rails in place.
Yeah,
One of the neat things with Azure is that you're going to be able to also set some permissions in place in terms of, here's the data that you have access to in scope, and you'd be able to say, build what you need to build. And we've already defined the boundaries of your permission at the API layer, and then go nuts, basically.
Yeah, totally. So if you can set up your access restrictions on the back end, then it's even more secure, because even no one in Retool then can modify those things. But you can set up some access controls within Retool. So different access groups that have certain access to specific resources, for instance.
Yeah, great. Let's jump in. We're going to start with a rough sketch of a project. We're going to do what every DevRel has to do at some point in his life: create a swag store. So I've got a model here. Let's see. I think this is the model I have set up here. We'll kind of replicate some of this, not all of it.
Nice.
But basically, are you familiar with this tool with DB diagram?
I've seen it. CBField has sent me these before. I've never created one though in here.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. So basically, it's a diagram as code sort of thing, which I love.
Yeah, I love that.
Makes me feel special, anyways.
Yeah, I love a good diagram.
Yeah. So we have here basically a customer, and then we have order. We have the ordered items, the product. We have addresses. I think we'll just try to create maybe a flow of a couple of basic products, a couple of basic customers, orders, and then we'll see if we want to iterate on it, because I mean Hazura lets you iterate pretty quickly on a GraphQL API. So we'll build out a couple pieces here and see just how far we get. And then we'll create a dashboard, admin dashboard Retool, that will see all the incoming orders and allow us to be able to sort of track their progress. And we'll kind of work back and forth between the two tools and just show how quickly something could actually come together.
Right on. This looks great. Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and log into Hazura here and bootstrap a new project here. We'll use, since I have access to it, I'm going to use the paid tier, but we're going to just throw on a new name here. I'm going to call mine the Retool swag Hazura demo. Why not? We'll save that. Reboot the console here. That's an invalid combination of characters. Of course it is. Retool, Hazura Retool. Why not? So if you follow the naming convention that I use for all my other demos, it would be a Hazura tool. Because I'm a sucker for a good portmanteau. So we'll just let that go. Oh, and I even misspelled it.
Happens.
Man.
Happens to the best.
Live typing. I'm gonna blame it on my keyboard.
Yeah, keyboards these days, you know.
Keyboards these days. We're gonna go ahead and launch that console, and I'm not gonna add any of the. Oh, they did that to me again. Okay, I have to wait for 1 second to see if it'll propagate through. Sometimes when you rename it, it has a longer downtime than it hints to in the launch console.
Right.
But we're up and running. All right, we're gonna go to data. We're gonna grab a Postgres database from Heroku, assuming they're not down.
I used a Hazura database, a Hazura API in the Retool content on how to build a GraphQL client, GraphQL admin panel. So for anyone that's listening, there's
what's the link to that? Or maybe you can drop that in the chat and then we can boost it.
I'll drop it in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, view database, create a table. I think it actually is not happy that I renamed it. I'm going to see if it's going to throw any more errors at me. I may go back to just the default name they gave me. But we're going to go ahead and see if this works just fine. All right. We're going to grab a quick UUID, grab the created at, the updated at, and we will put a name for a user on there. And we will put a email on there. Meet. Right. And put any validations on there for right now for the demo purposes. Were you able to drop that link to the?
Yeah, I just found it. So should I?
If you drop it in the chat tab of our Retool conversation here, that's the.
In the Slack chat or in the Restream chat?
I can boost it from here. That's fine.
Okay, there you go. Cool.
There we go. And we'll make another table here. In this case, we wanted to have the order, which we will use the same ID information created at, updated at, and we will put the customer ID, the UID field, and we will put an order ID, which we have not yet. Order item, actually, I think is what we had. So order item ID. Yeah. Well, we don't need to do that. Actually, we can do that on the other side. So we'll just remove that column. All right. So we'll add that order table. And then we will add the 2 more tables for product and order item. And we'll go to public here, create table, order item. Created at, updated. I always like to add those on there because it just helps. And we'll do customer ID from the, we'll do order ID actually. All right, we'll add that, and then we'll add the product ID. This is just going to be a join table, allowing us to be able to connect to our content.
Do you all have any sort of like upload interface that does any sort of like kind of automatic schema recognition? Like say you had a CSV file. This is something I remember looking for in the past. Where it might make some assumptions about data types for standing up like a new table like this.
We don't. We have raw SQL access here. So if you were to use another CSV to SQL generating tool, then you can just drop in your raw SQL and build that up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's actually, that would help a lot.
Yeah,
cool.
There are a number of tools, even from the Retool side, right, for working with CSVs. Are there any around that, or?
No, I think we have one that will convert CSV into a SQL insert statement with the create table logic. So
okay,
just seeing the raw SQL window would have helped.
Yeah, that could have also worked for this use case. We can have a quick peek at that here in 1 second. I'm just going to put a name of the product on there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we can maybe use the like Retool API generator too if you want to generate some fake data.
Yeah, because it was the Retool CSV.
If you do API generator, you can just download it as a CSV.
So this would be like this would be where you create it or you build your own, you said?
Yeah, build your own. So set how many rows. So this is a utility.
Now, in theory, we could remove the create tables and use this to generate some fake data we could insert into the things we just created, right?
Yeah, totally.
So we did a customer, for example. I think our customers, we had a row of, we had just the only 2 fields that are required here, email and name, because the other 3 get generated for us.
Yeah.
So we got name, and then email, and then we could probably choose an email type, I guess. Yeah, and then we could just say email, and we'll just drop these columns.
Yeah, let me just see if this utility has the SQL insert logic. Let me looking for it on my side.
So we got 50 rows here. Let's see what we get out of that. And
yeah, click the generate API, and then click see where it says write to database on the top, just up. Yeah, right there.
Oh, nice. Check that out. So we can just grab the insert statement. Ooh.
I think it might have a copy button too.
And it looks like it threw an automatic ID. So it did not take the name. column. Let's see if we can modify this. Can you modify it?
Yeah, there's multiple
Email.
versions of this. Let me pull up another one on my side.
It got a little confused, it looks like.
Yeah. Let's see. Next.
Go back to full name here. So we got email, full name, and then we can remove this column. So we can try that again here. Oh, we got a whole bunch of columns, it looks like. Okay. Move column. So we should be back to just the 2. Oh, it keeps trying to add, I guess, a custom ID or something just to be safe.
Yeah, I wonder if we can turn that setting off.
Otherwise, we could probably hack this a little bit. Generate API, write to database. So it's still dropping the name on us, though, is the problem. While you look to see if that works on that side, I'm going to go to mock real quick.
Yeah, I'll play with it on my side.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and grab a name, do a full name. Just the first name, common name, full name. There we go. And then we'll go email. Grab an email there. There we go. And then we'll just drop all these other columns. The name of my table is customer. It's customer. Customers. Oh boy, look at that, putting plurals in my table names.
How about that?
Forget that stuff. Oh, and I think I just grabbed 1,000 customers. So, okay. All right. If I just drop this into a document here, I should be able to just view the raw content. Yeah, so we've got insert into customers, name, email, values. Should get us halfway to home here. Let's go ahead and try and insert that. See if that works.
Great.
All right, so we got a whole bunch of customers now. And the only thing that's going to be a little annoying now is trying to attach a couple of custom orders to those UIDs, but we'll get around. We'll get around it, no problem. And we're going to go ahead and make a couple of products here. I don't think I have a name for the product. All right, so we're going to just do another mock review thing, unless you have the retool thing working.
Yeah, I think it's working now. Let me send you. I'm going to send in the chat a link. There's another one that's write mock data to MySQL utility. We basically built a whole bunch of these little utilities to help with various kind of data wrangling tasks. And some of them probably need a little bit of love.
It happens. All right, so this is the tool that I think you just sent me, right? Or
this is slightly different than the one that you were looking at a second ago.
This is the one that you just sent me now. Okay, so I can write mock data to MySQL, which we're doing Postgres, but probably
you can still, I think the insert statement's the same, but you can select Postgres once you get further down.
Okay, so we have 50. We're going to go to creating product names now, so we'll drop these columns. And now we've got a product, or we got a name field product. Do we have anything that's going to be a good fakeish?
There's you can just do a custom array and you can specify a few names.
I think there's a plan field.
Yeah, plan will give you.
So it's a bunch of individual entries. What I might try is just using this one because it's got really good.
Yeah, sure. If you're comfortable with this one, I'd say just
data.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're gonna do tag. Okay, we'll just go with a.
Wow, this is a solid
drug name.
Solid set of sample data.
Yeah, they got the weirdest things. Drug name generic. Okay. Is there a way to make sure that there's no repeats? I'm gonna only grab 50 of those. I think you can tell it to not do any repeats. But we can go ahead and try that. So we're gonna go ahead and switch this again to being SQL, and in this case it's product. I think it's product. Yeah, product. Just grabbing the names. Yeah, back to Makaru. Download the data. Let's see what we got. So we may have an issue with some repeat names, I'm guessing. But that last one.
Wow.
That is a heck of a
Polysaccharide
name.
diphtheria toxoid conjugate antigen.
All right, this just took a turn. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm gonna drop that last one because that's just Mama Dextra apparently.
Mama Dextra 6, that is.
Mama Dextra 6. Mama Dextra 5 was not as good for you. So
yeah, so they have multiple names, I guess, for some of these.
We'll
as long as you can handle commas.
Yeah. All right, so we've got a set of base products. And now we're going to create just a couple of basic orders with order items. I'm going to check to see again, make sure I've got everything set up here. We got the customer ID. I need to add the order item is going to be important to make sure we have the order ID good and the product ID good. All right, so what we're going to do is just snag some data here from an order. I'm going to make a new one, which I need to just grab a random customer ID here. So Ryan Baird is ordering himself some Mama Dextra.
Okay. He's from Mayo Clinic too, so it works out.
Is it really? That's hilarious. That's good. That is really good.
Yeah. It's meant to be.
Meant to be. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go to an order. We're going to go ahead and insert row. We're going to go ahead and put a customer ID on there. Hit save. We're going to connect our GraphQL data here in just a minute. Right now, we just got a bunch of disassociated IDs. Let's go ahead and have a look at what we got for our order ID. And we're going to go now to our order item. And we will insert a row for the order ID here. And then product ID, I'm going to actually open this in another tab so I can grab that product without losing the IDs that I'd saved. This is why demos always work better with integers, but we're going very similar. So name contains or is like mama. Name is, that should be, it's I like, yeah, case insensitive probably. Let me try that. There we go. All right, that's our product ID for Mama Dextra. And we're gonna go to our other tab here, drop in that product ID, save. And so if we've done our pieces of data correctly, and we now will create some relationships between these tables, we should have a GraphQL API that allows us to go view that over in Retool. So let's go ahead and have a look here with the relationships. We're going to create a first relationship between order item and product. So we will do this as a object relationship, and that will be a one-to-one. So that's going to be the product connecting to the product table, and we will do that as the product ID from the order item to the ID of the product. We'll hit save on that, and then we will connect to our order object relationship. Order to the order. And we will do the order ID is the ID. Let's go ahead and drop down. We'll do a special lookup here. We'll make it an array relationship now from our orders. We'll do an array relationship items, referencing order items, where the ID is the order ID. And that'll give us a nice array relationship for our items. And then we'll go customer to orders. And then we haven't created all the relationships, but that'll probably get us far enough to create what we need to. So we'll go relationships and we'll say configure a array relationship orders, where we go to the order and I needed to do it the other way around. The ID is in the customer ID. That'll work too. So there we go. There we go. Save. Okay. So we've got our API. Let's have a test on it. We got customers. I'm going to have to put a filter on there. Customers where the orders and the order items. Items, sorry. Here we go. And the products. All right, so we're going to try to do a little on the fly thinking here. So we're going to say customers where orders. Well, the better way to do this is actually to go ahead and put the reverse relationship here from order to customer. And then we'll just search for all orders, which is not having to filter down to not empty customer orders. So we'll just go ahead and do a relationship here real quick. So order, and that's an object relationship to customer, where we have the, I'm referencing table, sorry, to customers. Customer ID is then ID. All right, so that should do that. And then we can make our API a little more sensible here. Yay, GraphQL. So let's go.
Yeah, this is cool. I've never played much with the relationships in Hasura, so it's cool to see this.
Yeah, the ability we had there to create that array relationship based on the lookup for the IDs allowed us to bypass the need for a foreign key there, whereas otherwise we would have needed another join table.
Yeah.
So now I can go this way. I can just say customer name, and then items, and then the product, and the product name. So this gives me a much cleaner API now. This should just give me Ryan Baird there. So we have a nice cool query here. We'll call this the query get orders. This is just for us to have it persisted. That's actually essentially all we need to start prototyping inside of Retool. So let's head over to the Retool side now. And I'm going to just close some of these tabs here. And I'm going to close down that one and Makaroo and that one. All right. And now we have here inside of Retool, I'm going to go ahead and log in. And I think I have an account already with Hasura. I do, from the low code series, which you guys can all check out. I still have that link posted up there. I'm going to hide that. Somebody doesn't like the jumping around. Sorry for that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and make a new project.
Hey, Edar Dev, we're building a GraphQL interface for handling swag orders. Maybe you can give a little more context, a little question in the chat.
Yeah, we're creating an admin interface to handle swag orders. Yeah, basically we're just looking at prototyping an interface using Hasura and as the back end, and then Retool as the front end. And we basically have gotten through explaining what the pieces do, how Hasura is relationship building, and being able to generate some fake data with another tool called Makaroo. Retool also has utilities for that, putting it inside of Hasura. And now we're going to try and build an interface to handle those orders from the Retool side. So we'll create a new app here. And so we've got a really blank canvas here. Why don't you tell me what you would suggest that I do as the first step?
Yeah, totally. So if you can see anyone new to Retool here, there's 3 buttons up in the middle that lets you show and hide the different panels. So the left-hand panel will show you all the different parameters for the user, the components, and the queries. The bottom panel is where we can create queries to get some data from GraphQL, and then the right-hand panel where we can drop in UI components, tables, buttons, headers, modals, images, rating boxes, JSON viewers, all sorts of stuff. So I like to start with just creating a GraphQL read just to get some data in, and then drop a table down. So to start with that, I would go to new in the query panel, click the new button, and resource query, or resource query, and then go to the resource and then click create a new, unless you already have a resource.
Well, I have one from before, but we'll skip that one just for purposes of this demo. Yeah.
So here we need to set up a little linkage to our GraphQL endpoint where we can drop in any like authentication data. So what you can see here, there's a whole bunch of different databases. So if you're one of the coolest things about Retool is it's not just, you might have a GraphQL endpoint that has a bunch of useful data, but you also might need to mesh that with some data from Firebase or another MySQL database directly that doesn't have a GraphQL endpoint, or any number of other places, a Google Sheet even. So you can create resources for any of these different databases or APIs, and then bring all of that data into a front end. So yeah, we just go and grab GraphQL, and then we can drop in, give it a name, and then plug in your Hasura endpoint.
Did we call it his Hasura tool?
Yeah, and this is just the name within Retool, so it doesn't have to.
It's got to match.
Yeah, right. Donation, you had the question, is Retool the best tool to plug with Hasura, or would you recommend any other stack like Bubble? Really, from my opinion, it really depends on what your level of technical ability is. Bubble's great. I love Bubble. It's going to appeal to a little bit less technical user. You're going to have a whole lot more like clicking and dragging and dropping and settings, whereas Retool is built much more with an engineer in mind. So you can build typically more complex stuff, even like bringing in custom React components and connecting to different types of databases and systems. So it really depends on your level. If you're already fairly technical, Retool, in my opinion, is a better choice, but I'm obviously biased.
Yeah, I've built with both, and also from my side, when it comes to, like, I'm a front end developer, and so I really like the ability to build totally custom front ends with code, but I don't really enjoy building back end admins, because a lot of times you're just reinventing already agreed upon best practices for UX interfaces, for admin interfaces. And that's a case where something like Retool really shines well. Bubble does a little bit of everything. It does, the front ends, and it does the apps and everything else. And Retool kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, Retool sort of goes all in on the ability for mostly internal tooling. It's kind of where they shine, right?
Yeah, mostly internal tooling. You're gonna spend more time and effort trying to make it look and feel really good, especially if it's some sort of external app that you're trying to maybe sell or build your business around. But if it's something where it's accessing internal data, like maybe you can deploy Retool within your own private cloud if you want to. So give it access to all of your internal private databases that you might not want to set up publicly available endpoints for. We can allow Google sign-on, single sign-on, different single sign-on services. So anyone across your organization can quickly sign in. You can associate them with user groups and set up access restrictions. So we've very much been built around this concept of internal tooling, software for internal processes to your business or organization.
So we've got the We've got the setup now. I did have one question that I actually am not familiar how to do this inside of Retool. Is there a place to identify secrets or any kind of environment variables for the hosted version of Retool?
For the like cloud hosted version?
Yeah.
Are you mean? I mean the on-premise version. Is that what
I
you're
mean,
referring
for this version here. So I'm going to paste in my token now for
Yeah.
a Azure admin secret. Is there a place that I could identify that as like a variable that my average user wouldn't have access to, or?
I don't believe so. I haven't ever done that or tried. You can set this resource to be only accessible to users within certain groups. So like say you could say this is a resource that's only editable for admin users, for instance. So the credentials will be stored encrypted. But you're saying more so if you need to use it as a, like reference it in another place somewhere else.
Yeah. So this would kind of get back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the call, is when it comes to protecting your resource at on the back end, what we would ideally recommend doing in the future is you would probably create a special role that you would then put in behind a JWT token, and that you could distribute here and pass in as a authorization token that would be specific for that role that has scoped access here inside of Retool instead of using your Azure admin secret. That would just be the better way to lock down, because you can use, like they were talking about, using other databases and things inside of Retool to create the mesh here. With the release of the REST connectors, you can also, and the multiple database support, you can also do that on the Azure side. So you could really get your entire data layer locked down in terms of permission, distribute the token that this tool is allowed to use, and then anybody who's got permission to use the tool would be able to have a scoped access to this environment. I also see you can forward cookies, which is kind of cool, because you could also then do that. We could actually hook into, I guess, your Auth0 interface or something and be able to create authenticated environments here as well.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That's super cool. So then you can really have your user permissions from Retool be mapped to what you have set up inside of Azure as well. So
yeah. And so I'm looking at our on-premise deployment docs. You can set up environment variables on the on-premise deployment.
The on-premise one, yeah, that's what I'd found too. I just hadn't seen it for. All right, so we have this. We have the resource created, and now it's gone ahead and made us a query using that resource. Is that the correct way to describe that?
Yeah. So on the left there, query 2 is a query, and it's referencing the Hasura tool resource. And we can just close the left and the right panel there just to give it a little bit more space. And so now on the right-hand side, we have the Schema Explorer. And so this should be pulling in, it's introspecting into the GraphQL schema, so we can see it's broken out and shows us a little bit of how the API is expecting us to interact with it. And so in the query, we could just take the query that you had set up in the Hasura interface there and run it, or you can also use autocomplete within the interface by hitting control space as you're typing. So
that's just great.
Yeah, that's like one of the funnest things for me. It's just like how fast, if someone's set up the API in a good way, that like how quickly it'll let you explore and start pulling data back. So as soon as you get some data in, go ahead.
And for the purposes of this demo, I've already done made the query inside of the Hasura side, but this using the introspection there is just really great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if someone set up the API well, it makes it so fun and easy just to quickly get some data in. And so you can click preview there up on the top right of the query panel, and we can see a little bit more data. And so if you pull that bottom panel up, you can see.
I already had that in cloud. Okay.
Well, just the preview. Yeah, there we go. So you can see the response that came back from the endpoint. But if you're doing some more troubleshooting, you might go to the API request tab and see the actual like lower level data, how it's posted over, and response, all of the response data from the endpoint. And then so we know we're getting some data in. So now what I would do is grab a table component from the right hand panel and just drop it onto the UI.
Okay. Should I save and run this first, or?
Yeah, save and run it first for sure.
And I think I'll rename it here as well, real quick. A user status had a question regarding if Retool supports subscriptions, not with the query interface, but you could create a listener and run your own JavaScript code and essentially write your own WebSocket connector on the page.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We also have a timed query interface to where you can set a query to run periodically. So say like once a minute, once every 30 minutes or something, to go out and pull the endpoint.
Yeah. So we should probably have this one run automatically when inputs change. There's no inputs at the moment for this one. But that's probably, or should we, or you can connect it to like a manual fetch, basically, right?
Yeah, I would just
go get orders.
Yeah, you set it to manual works. PowerApps. I personally haven't used PowerApps. I hear customers of ours tend to maybe use that if they're already on like a very their company is very much within the Microsoft ecosystem. It's the same thing though. We tend to get developers tend to love us because we speak developer. We enable a lot of low-level access for developers, whereas PowerApps is more designed for a less technical audience. So if you're more technical, you'll probably like Retool more and be more capable with it. Is my understanding of, but I haven't actually spent much time in PowerApps personally.
All right, so we've got our data pulled in here, and so it's giving us the two JSON objects where we have the customer at the top level, and then we have the lower level product with a for the items.
Yep.
Is there a way to manually break this out, or is there a way to what's the best
so under each of these columns, what I would do is scroll down on the table there and click on the customer column. Just on the right hand side of your screen, middle right hand, right there. And then see that it says mapped value. So we can just reference the self.name. That answer your question? Yeah. So this is, you get a lot of flexibility depending on what type of structure the data is coming in. You can kind of manipulate it there. You can also write JavaScript anywhere within these curly brackets. So if you needed to do some more complex transformations on that data, you could do it.
Now, I'm gonna guess that a way that we could kind of solve this problem is, instead of listing out all of the items here, a better approach might be if we were to modify our query real quick.
Yeah.
You add a canonical top level to our order, something kind of like the created at, and then that would allow us to sort of have a listing item we could click on, and then maybe show the actual items itself.
Yeah. Then you just click on the listing and see the broken out data on the right hand side. Yeah, that would be a good interface for this.
So we'll go ahead and zoom, close this back down here real quick. So we have the table here. We can turn off the items, and then make a new table, I guess.
Containers usually. Well, I guess it'll be multiple items, right?
Sure. So let's show what we got.
I'd like to do a container for this, just so you can give it a title, and you can also add in multiple other things. Oftentimes, you want to have a button to say, confirm submission of this item, or confirm this shipment for swag, or whatever it is.
So we can say, well, this is also a little markdown field here. So we'll say list of items, and then we would add like a text field, I guess, inside of here.
Yeah, text or a table even. Or a list. There's lots of options. A table is going to be the easiest one to start out with, and then maybe we want to upgrade it from there. And then just expand it over to the side there. Whenever you get these smaller container sections, they can be a little funky. Yeah, there we go.
So then, inside of it's okay, yeah. Got it.
And the container is set to auto size right now. So if you click on the container and scroll down,
I'm gonna real quick for a purpose rename my table here, which will make sense in a second. for people who are watching and wondering. So it's auto size right now, you said, so height can be fixed, I guess.
Yeah, there you go, and then you can expand it down.
All right. Yeah.
There you go.
And then for the table itself, we can, let's go ahead and shrink this one up a little bit because we don't need it to be that big. And now we have less scroll bars.
Yeah. So then in the table, we can set the value to reference the selected row.
And it's going to be selected row of the other table, right?
Yeah. So whatever. Yeah.
So the all orders selected row data.
Yeah. And you can see that whenever you start typing that, it'll show you the possibilities that it expects for that. So you get some suggestion here. Okay, and then for the data, maybe do data dot, what was that, items? There we go. Yeah.
And then we can just, again, do the same trick we learned with the product there.
Yep.
And do the self dot name.
Yeah. And it might be good to set the table to do compact mode, so it'll yeah.
Compact mode, you said?
Yeah. Should be a little radio button somewhere in that right-hand panel side. Must we change
style maybe somewhere down here, or
scroll up a hair. Show custom, show refresh, download raw data. How many items are there associated with this Ryan Baird?
Right now there's just one item.
Okay, it might just be taking up more space because it only sees one row. So we could leave it like that for the moment.
Okay. Let's add a feature. So we've got our data listing there, which is cool. We can just add some quick data here to list out another item, and let's try and add a mutation that would showcase something like updating an order status.
Yeah, totally.
I think it probably makes sense to kind of wrap up showing the integration here.
Yeah, totally. We could drop in a little text header at the top too, and show some of the markdown.
Can I share this interface with you while I work on the?
Not unless I'm invited inside of your org. You can share we don't
have an org.
Well, you could invite me into your org, and I could jump in from the Retool admin page.
Or maybe just.
But you can also just post that public link into the chat so that people can see it real time. Go to public. No, it's because it's not the free plan.
Let's get the feature added here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to data now, and we're going to add another order real quick. So I'm going to grab another random customer, and I'm going to grab friends.
Yeah, let me see if I can upgrade you as well.
And I'm going to go to a new order. I'm going to insert insert a row. Customer ID is that. And then I need the order ID that I just created here, which is one that I just made. 54, that's that one there. We'll go ahead and put this onto the order items. We'll go ahead and insert a row, order ID. And again, I'm going to go to product here and grab a list of products. I can undo the filter here. How do I undo the filter? There it is. All right. I'm going to grab this one here. So just some basic ibuprofen. Go ahead and save there. I'm going to modify, add just a couple of other items here just so we have a bit of variety there. All right. So now,
what's the email you have for this
Jesse at hazura.io. I'm going to go back over here now. And if I go ahead and I refresh this page, what I should get is the run the query. So now I've got the 2 users. And we can see that it grabs the selected selected row there. And if I switch to, so if I show friends, so there's a problem with my data though. Let's go ahead and inspect there. So if I preview that, why am I only seeing 1 order for?
So items, product.
I should see a list of all items.
Yeah, see if the table.
Maybe it's a table issue. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on here. So I go to friends again. Oh yes, it's paginated. That's why.
Yeah. So just extend that
Whoops.
table down.
And back to Ryan Baird here. So there we go. There we go.
Yeah. There
So we can see that we're able to view that data there. Very nice. Let's add a field to our order here. So go ahead and modify it real quick. We're going to add a Boolean on there called processed. Go ahead and I'm not sure if I spelled processed right, but I'm going to go with it.
Processed.
And what we're going to do when you come back over here now to Retool, we're going to see that if we refresh, we'll see that we have the a new column when I add it to the query. This part, the iteration part's where it gets really fun, you know?
Yeah.
And so we go back to our modify order. And what we're going to do is create a mutation that will allow us, and we can test it actually from the Retool side. We're going to add a button to this table that I actually probably need to grab the ID of the order as well, because I'll need that to be able to do this. We'll go ahead and save and run. I'm going to hide the ID from the user because that's not important. But now I want to add a button to the table, which is down at the bottom here, right? Show custom button. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Also, if you scroll, well, for the table on the right, I saw we just moved the compact row setting, so I can show you where that's at as well.
And try and get the query in there real quick. So I'm going to create a new query using the Hazura tool resource.
Yeah, and just a quick pause there. So you can see that you can have a button here that can, so now you're pulling in data from your Hazura resource, but you could also have this just run some generic JavaScript that's, doing some transformation. You could have it go and, push this data into a Google Sheet or send an email or, grab some other data from a different disparate database, maybe with the same ID. So there's lots of different options.
Pop this out here. So we got the string, and then we're going to go ahead and say update order by primary key, primary column is ID. I think it's an array. Sometimes I forget my syntax for the syntax for that again. I'm pulling a blank.
I think I might have it in my other Hazura app.
There it is.
Key value pairs.
ID. Then we can have the set. And we'll say processed, now true. And we'll return the ID for this case. The ID here is complaining, UID. All right, so we have this mutation created now for process order. We can go ahead and save that query.
Yeah, and something to show there is whenever you created that type for the ID, under the query, in the variables section, there's now an ID which you can then just go and plug in whatever value you want to map in there from that selected row.
Just like that.
Yep.
Now, what I need to do is the button's not showing up at the moment.
So I think can you hide?
Oh, it's this one down here. It's not the one I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
There's the button column, right? That's what I was looking
for. Yeah, go to the action section right there. Yep.
Sorry, here.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
And then I think our video might be blocking that a bit on the overlay on the screencast.
Oh yeah. Let me see if I can move it up a little bit, or
no, can you scroll? Yeah, I think just scrolling up or down. Yeah, there we go.
But basically we can go ahead and say process here, and then we will run that query we just identified. Run a query. It will be running the process order. Oh wow, it got a funny name there, but
hey, I have to save it, or save it with a different name, but it'll automatically propagate the change when you change the name.
Okay, so we've added the button. We have it now there at the beginning. I'm going to remove the custom button option because that's now bad for the UI. Show the custom button. But now, so in theory, if I hit this, it'll switch to a Boolean value, right? Actually, no, because what I need to do is after I process this, we say event handler. So on success, we want to re-trigger a query.
Yeah. So basically, once you process, once you update some item in the database, for the listeners, we want to run another query to update the table so that it's pulling the most recent data from the database.
Yeah. So theoretically, I hit this button.
Yeah, and then go to did the event handler get? Go to the
event handler.
Well, we'll see if the name propagated.
It didn't.
Okay, that might be something I need to pass on to engineering.
Yeah,
and then go to the event handlers under that as well. I'm not sure if it's saved or
under this event handler.
Under the process order, yeah. So you want that one to? Well, aren't you saying you want it to run the get orders after it updates?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
And then just exit out of that. Yeah, there we go. So now we have a success event handler. So when you successfully process an order, it will update that table. And there we go.
Now, did I actually click on the right one? Did it just filter it?
Yeah, it just reordered it whenever it updated the table.
Got it.
So if you update that one too,
probably ordering by updated or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, so like this takes us just a few minutes over, but so we can see that with a very minimal amount of effort, we literally built the entire thing from API, explaining what the tools were, building the API out, and then creating an interface. This is a really, really powerful flow. So I can go to the preview mode here. Yeah. And then you can distribute this to people. We can do it right now. We can share this and drop this public link into the chat.
See if it'll work now. Yeah.
We'll just pop this in here for people to have a go at. But that's like a really, really cool way to be able to build out applications. Because if somebody said, hey, we need to have a swag store that we're going to be processing orders, and we want to be able to not have to, buy some crazy e-commerce thing. That's a really, really fast way to prototype and get something running. Like this is missing some features, but this is enough interface wise for teams internally to process the orders.
Yeah, totally. And maybe show just go dropping in like a couple charts and some buttons and a little title real fast, and could kind of show, there's a lot more that you can be adding in here beyond just viewing some data and some simple buttons. So have some charts, buttons, review items, drop downs. You can pull in your own custom elements if you wanted to. So you can really start to customize this interface however you want. You can link multiple of these apps together. So typically one of these apps starts out pretty simple, and then some users start asking for some updates, and then you might end up with 2 or 3 different apps that are serving different users across the org. And so you can
if I take like the all orders here and I actually want to just get like all of the data, what format does the chart look for? Is it looking for a XY?
Well, I'm not sure if it'll work with this data we have in, because I think it's going to probably be looking for some integer value or numeric value.
Can we change the chart to like a radial chart or something?
Yeah, go back to the insert pane. Oh, on the right hand side. Yeah. And it's under the same one. We actually just
a progress chart or something.
Yeah, you drop that in. We just increase like our Plotly support. Well, that's a simple one.
Which chart were you wanting to show?
Well, there's a pie chart under the chart that I thought it's just a little bit more visually appealing. Let's see.
A pie chart.
Yeah, there we go. So go to the very top, the first section where it says chart right there. Yeah, and just drop that one in.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, so I see what it's doing. It's trying to automatically reference that query1.data.
So we can do something like a pie chart here.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's trying to automatically reference the data from the GraphQL query. So you'd have to like basically look at what's the data you want to implement, and you could look at the Plotly JSON, for instance, there, and figure out, how do you need to map this to your X and Y coordinates or whatever it is. But
let's see what would we have. We would have that'd be getting a little bit.
Yeah, if you drop this, I'll just drop some just drop that JSON into the private chat. If you drop that into the UI form for the bar chart, for instance, just give a simple example without too much formatting.
So I added it.
Yeah, and then change it to x-axis values, change it to region. And then let's see. For the data sets, do you see the data set section? That should be sales, sales and spend.
So group by spend, or the data sets?
Group by can be empty, but the data sets, so just set it to sales and spend.
Data set values.
Is
this a what am I supposed to add here?
In the chat. Let's see if that came through. It's basically just formatting the data from the input as an object.
I think the JSON got truncated that you sent over.
Then, yeah, so let's see where that dropped off. Should be the rest of it. And then the rest of it is in the chat.
Is that another line?
No,
200 or
same line. It's just completing that spin value. But then you have this.
I have to copy it anyways.
Yeah, right.
It sure looks like what you sent over, but I know what his problem is. I'm not closing off.
Yeah, close out the curly braces. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
And the moment I have it as a group by, I could remove that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you can add another data set. I think the main thing to communicate here is just like, say you want to add in some more advanced charts or UI elements that can really build out a fairly complex interface that could really map to all sorts of different business processes.
Because you could have like the average amount of dates between the created at versus the updated at, where.
Yeah, totally. Like total
kind of see tracking. Yeah.
Total orders this week versus last week, or orders, swag orders over the last year or something like that. And sometimes people will just pull in their own like custom UI components. And so you could show like in the insert panel, you could add in like a custom React component if you wanted to. I don't know, some other cool things to show is like you could set up production and staging UIs based on different, like maybe you have live production data that you have to be careful with. So you might have a staging resource up in the top right there if you have production and staging, or top middle just to the right of the three show hides. So you could set up that. You can also right next to the share button, the three dots up in the top right. To the left of that, the dot. So you can go in and see releases and history. So if you're working on these as a group, you can see who all's made changes. You can create specific releases. You can revert those if you need to. You can also export this whole thing as a JSON. So if you wanted to just back it up on your own or send it to someone who could import it into their own account, you can pull in your own custom JavaScript libraries. You can modify the CSS on the page. So if you wanted to really get into the low level kind of styling customization, you can do that there. And also there's tons of templates that people have pre-built and shared, and you can find those on the Retool site, which can be a big help in just getting started. And I can drop you a link if you want. Oh yeah, there you go.
And I mean, that's where this sort of, and low code is the right term, because you do need to know how to think in a code way, but you don't need to write all of this boilerplate yourself, right?
Yeah,
like you're just writing the pieces that are relevant to your domain. I mean, similar to what the Hazura promises, and that you don't need to write the resolvers. You just work on the part that's relevant to your domain.
Totally. And if you want to just process refunds, like you really don't care a whole lot about spending time building the interface. You just need something that'll functionally allow you to give something to your support team or whoever it is, and quickly empower them to, process refunds. And maybe there's some sort of, custom Stripe refund SaaS tool you could go out and buy, but then it's got to go through procurement and this complex buying process. So there's tons and tons of internal automation requirements that happen to pop up, and like simply managing inventory, for an e-commerce store. You might be pulling some data down from Shopify and then pushing some data into your back end inventory resource management tool, that kind of thing. Yeah, so
that was really great. I'm a big fan of the tool, and I think that especially when you take something like Hazura, where you can really build out a very protected GraphQL layer that allows you to have that flexibility to work with like maybe you don't need a whole bunch of APIs identified. You can just get your data model in place, get your relationships in place, and then you can actually give access to an internal ops person to build out the interface they need with the data they have permission to access, and
Yeah,
then
totally.
throw it to an interface like Retool, where again you're abstracting away the need for that boilerplate code, and you can really create empowered teams that are freeing up dev resources, and that's just a really powerful flow that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, totally. One other real quick thing to show, just to show how people can be empowered. If you go back to the Swag editor and pull up the left-hand panel of the Retool app, yeah. So you can see like within this now we have breakouts of all the different queries and components. So if you click on the like all orders table, for instance, and then drop it down, so you can see the breakout of all the different properties for this table. And so if you're writing any JavaScript here, maybe you want to very selectively, you know, do something, change the row color based on the type of item it is. You could write some JavaScript that's doing that, or programmatically set the filters. There's really, we've tried to make it as low level accessible for engineers everywhere that we can. And so, you know, you can see all of these different properties, and those will populate within JavaScript wherever you're writing JavaScript. I mean, the same thing for the queries. You can expand the queries and see the responses that come back and all that kind of thing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, thanks again for joining. We took everybody a little bit over today, which I appreciate everybody sticking around for the end of the call.
Yeah.
But that was really great. And again, I think this is a really impressive tool. I think it's a really great workflow. Personally, I think that the Hasura plus Retool story is a very interesting one. So I encourage everybody to give that a try. And with that being said, we'll say goodbye from this side. And Chris, any last thoughts? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can find me at chris.smith@retool.com if you want to shoot me an email. On Twitter, I'm at CLSSmitty. And then if you start playing with Retool, we have a community at community.retool.com. There's tons of engineers and people on our team that are monitoring that. So if you start playing around with it, you know, feel free to drop questions in there or shoot me a message. And yeah, it's free to try and free to build. And so even if you're not paying anything, you can build these apps on your own and just use them in the editor mode. So it's a product that I really love, and that's why I came to work at Retool. And I get so excited about the potential. And whenever you speed up the ability to build these types of apps, it just leads to more creativity and more innovation. And so I hope you listeners get a chance to play with it and have some fun and build things that help save people time and create interesting new types of apps. So, and thanks for having me, Jesse. Really appreciate you, and cool to see you walking through the product, and yeah, really happy to see how Hasura and Retool can come together. There's a lot of potential there.
All right. So we'll see everybody next week, same time on Tuesday. And until then, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jesse.